Hello and welcome to my channel. It's the Network Specialist. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell so that you know each and every time I upload a video. Everything I will discuss in this video is alleged and in my very own opinion, used for entertainment purposes only. Today I will be doing a recap of the Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 16, Episode 3, High Notes and Cheap Shots. Now let's get into it. Hey, Mama Bees, my moderator, thank you so much for being here, says, hey, Soundcheck Annette, thank you so much for being here. And she says she'll be in the bushes listening. She's at work. And Mama Bees has let me know that she can hear me. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay. So, Britt Edie and her husband, Mike, they invite some family members over for dinner. And it's Mike's sister, and I'm assuming that was her husband, that was with her and her son, and they sat down for a nice dinner, guys. They had lobster tails, scallops, and I think they had what's the name of that cake? Strawberry shortcake or something like that. So they had a real nice dinner. Britt tried to pull her sister-in-law off to the side, because she just wanted to have like a little sidebar conversation. She tried to do it at the table. She tried to talk about the fact that they were planning a wedding because they never actually had a wedding because they just ended up going to the courthouse. I want to say it was during the C-19 situation. So they just ended up going to the courthouse. So now they want to have an actual wedding. And her husband was like, but yeah, we're not going to talk about that now. Um, and I'm starting to get a picture about Mike. Um, and either he's very attentive to her or he might be a little controlling. I did hear him say he told, I guess, the chef or somebody to wrap up her food that she would eat it later. Then he wanted to go and break up the conversation between her and her sister to bring her back to the table to have dessert. So, time will tell. This is just an early observation that I'm picking up, on Mike and everything. And then we also found out that Britt dated Rick Ross, back in the day. But now it seems like it's something that she's a little bit embarrassed about it, but however, she did date Rick Ross back in the day. And we also found out that one of the main reasons why Britt wanted to start an insurance agency is because her dad was very, very successful in the mortgage industry. and he left her mom a $2 million insurance policy, but she didn't get it due to him transitioning from one job to the next during, the time I guess that he felt ill. So, she didn't get the insurance policy, so they had to end up starting a GoFundMe. So, and I can totally relate to that, being that I'm also in the insurance industry. It makes you really understand how important it is to have insurance. And she did bring her two sisters along, when she started her agency. She was just like, let's get this money together. Um, Initially, but she did end up having to sell the agency. And that's kind of like when her sisters and her went their separate ways. They weren't that close after that. They had, I guess they had a little rift in the agency, and maybe she just got tired, and that's why, she decided to sell, the agency or whatever. And maybe she just wanted to do her own thing. So Portia and Kelly meet up at a restaurant, and Kelly has an upcoming event. Um, it's called Mommy and Me, I think Mommy and Me Time or something like that. And Kelly she invited Portia and all of the girls. So at this meeting with just her and Portia, during the conversation, it came up about Kelly asking Portia why she took that woman's husband. And Kelly explained to her that, initially when she asked Shamea the question, Shamea told her that she should ask Portia when she seen her in person. So when she first said it, Portia took that as Shamea setting her up to be ambushed. Um, but I don't see it that way. Actually, I felt like Portia was actually defending Shamea, and instead of talking about her behind her back, basically she just told Kelly to ask her whenever she sees her in person. So that's how I took it. When that whole scene went down, I didn't feel like Shamea was setting Portia up or anything like that. She was doing what a friend should do. If you got a question about Portia, you know, ask Portia yourself. Like, you know what I'm saying? Since she's not here to defend herself. So Portia just, really didn't want to address the situation. But she had to know when she came back that she would, be called out on that whole situation. So she really should have been prepared for that. Like she should have, memorized her reads or whatever her clapback was going to be, because she's had plenty of time to, think about how she wanted to respond to that question, because she knew that it would be asked. Okay. But however, they were able to clear the air, and I think, they're good moving forward. So they were able to come to some resolution, which you already know, that's what I like to see. So the remaining time during the dinner, they were laughing, eating, drinking, and just having a good old time, And initially, Portia had called Kelly a troll. So then, after they, came to, some resolution, she called her treasure troll. So seems like they're going to be good moving forward. So Drew was at the studio, and Kenya, Cynthia, and Angela stopped by for a visit. And of course, Kenya couldn't wait to get to the conversation about her and Dennis. So um, she asked her, like, have you had a conversation? What about Dennis? Are you dating Dennis, or whatever the case may be? So, she did let her know that Dennis was executive producing her album, and he was supposed to be there today, that day, because they were supposed to be choosing her single, but he didn't show up. Maybe she gave him the heads up that they were going to be there, so he didn't show up. But Kenya definitely wanted to know if, they had had a conversation about Portia, and she said yes via text message, because she said that her and Dennis, they're not friends, so they don't really talk on the phone. But obviously, the show showed clips of them having actual phone conversations. So we know that's just one of the little white lies that Drew tells. Okay. And Drew also said that, there had been a lot of attacks on her. It's just like you know, Drew versus everybody. And Kenya told Drew that, she can't play the victim because she brought this situation on herself. And Cynthia even shared that when um, Kenya got ready to do her troll video or whatever the case may be, she wanted Leon, which is Cynthia's ex, to be in her movie, whatever it was. And she reached out directly to Cynthia to, get her blessings. So, she was just saying that was all you had to do, because, Kenya says that, she let Drew know that she felt like she was dead wrong for working with Dennis without speaking directly to Porsha. And, Kenya wanted to know why can't Dennis speak up for her? Because, she's being talked about like she's a whore, not hoe, but a whore. So, and like Cynthia said, it's one thing to be called a hoe, but that's on a whole nother level. So, they talked about Shamea calling Drew out at the birthday party, which I thought that Shamea was respectful in the way that she actually asked Drew, was she dating Dennis? These ladies tried to pretend like she asked, Drew, was she effing Dennis? But of course, they, played a clip and she said, are you dating Dennis? And she didn't use the F word. So again, she was respectful in the way that she approached Drew about dating Dennis. And Drew did say that Portia reached out to her after the birthday party, Shamea's birthday party, and told her that they need to talk. And Cynthia made a point of telling Drew that baby daddies are, you know, they hit different. Okay. They're off limits. And I totally agree, especially if you haven't taken the time to have a conversation. So, the next scene is at Shamia's house with her two sisters, and they talked about everything she had been through, with her daughter Shiloh, and then even having an ectopic pregnancy. And then it even came up that Shia had to have some minor surgeries as well. So, Shamia really did have a lot going on these last couple of years. And she said that without her sisters being there, like she would never have been able to get through the last couple of years. Like she really went through a lot. And on top of that, her and her husband are thinking about having another baby via surrogacy, and, I think it's a lot, you know, I mentioned it before. Um, because she still don't know what the future holds for Shiloh. But I also understand that, if you're going to have babies, you might as well go ahead and do it and get it out the way, because what you don't want to do is have a baby and then wait 5, 7, 8, however many years, and then start all the way back over. It is easier when you have your kids, at one time versus waiting a long period of time and having to start back over. So I totally get it. It's just a very sensitive situation because of everything that she has been through with her daughter. And, she really does get very emotional just even talking about the journey that she's had, with her daughter Shiloh, and then having the ectopic pregnancy as well, and then having to find a new surrogate because obviously she can't use the one that she used the first time because she ended up having breast cancer. So now she has to deal with a totally new surrogate when that time comes, if that time comes. So Angela and Charles, they meet up at one of their investment properties, and you know, they're doing some enhancements on their investment property. And then she talked about the fact that they had to take a break from their marriage. And guys, I will say that Angela looks good for her age. However, I don't know how old Angela is. Okay. I tried to Google how old this lady was, but it seems like that all you can find, I want to say, is her birthday, which I think is May 4th. I was never able to find the year. And there's a way that you can do that on social media to keep people from knowing your age. They say that Beyonce did it. So a lot of people don't know Beyonce's real age, but I didn't have a lot of time to spend looking up this lady's age, but it's obvious that she don't want people to know her actual age. But however, even if she's in her, 50s, whatever the case may be, Angela looks good, you know. Now her nose is questionable, and we'll get to more of that later, but overall, she looks very good for her age. And she also talked to her husband about going to marriage counseling because, they've just had issues where they've had to separate for a period of time. And she knows for them to have a long-standing relationship, they're definitely going to need counseling. And I could see that because her husband, Charles, he seems like he is really a piece of work. So I'm pretty sure that marriage counseling will definitely help them to have a long-term marriage. So Drew meets up with her attorney, Tanya, at her office to discuss her divorce. And, it came up that Ralph is withholding his financial information. And this is prolonging the divorce. And most of the paperwork that he did provide, it had Drew's information on it. So it's looking like Drew is the breadwinner in the family, and most of, their expenses are paid by Drew, even though he was supposed to pay for the household expenses and a few more, other things. But at this point, I don't know if he's getting information from Martell on how to handle this divorce situation, but he did not want to provide his financial information. They talked about the court documents. They're currently sealed, but at some point they will be unsealed. And immediately when that subject came up, Drew got very emotional and, started shedding tears because that's a very sensitive situation for her because, she just wants to protect her kids. And those documents contains, Ralph's cheating allegations, him sexting other women, and also taking money out of her bank account. So she just really wants to keep all of that stuff private so that her kids don't find out because at the end of the day, that's their father, and you're supposed to protect your kid's father to a certain degree. Okay, let me make that very clear. Until he starts acting like a donkey, you should try to protect him. Okay, so Shamea, in the next scene, is driving Shia to the hospital. She's getting ready to have a minor procedure, and they're riding in her new car. And her husband meets her at the hospital so that they can support their daughter for this procedure. Hey, Sharon Godbolt, thank you so much for being here. And so that was very short. So Portia and her mom they go to have a massage, and Portia says that with all of the negativity that's going on, with her divorce, having a massage really helps her with her anxiety. um so it's one of her favorite things to do, because of everything she's going through with the divorce. And the fact that her divorce is so public, is making the situation even worse. And she also shared that with her first divorce, they went through the process together. So they were in communications, and they went through the whole process together. She said, but this time it's different because, her and Simon, they don't have any communication at all. So, it's just like she's going through all of this by herself. And her mom chimed in to say that, she always felt like Simon was Portia's protector, but now it feels like she's just on an island all by herself. And, I'm pretty sure she's leaning very heavily on her mom and then also, her sister Lauren. So, within Simon's culture, tradition, whatever you want to call it, you are supposed to be able to reach out to the family for assistance, but Simon's family does not want to be involved with this whole divorce situation. So Portia was very disappointed that his family didn't want to intervene. They just want the court process to continue and just play out however it's going to play out. And I'm pretty sure that Simon reached out to his family members and told them not to communicate with Portia, you know. And I can't say that I blame them, even though that's their culture. Simon knows that this thing is going to be very public and it's going to get very messy. And just so to keep them from probably saying the wrong thing, it's just best that they stay quiet and just let, everything just play out the way that it's going to play out. But I do like the fact that Portia took up for Shamea when her mom said, "You got to watch the dog that carries the bone." Because I also felt like Shamea, again, was defending Portia when she chose not to talk about her business when she wasn't present. So I think a lot of people are kind of jumping in, you know, Portia and Shamea's relationship. Some people are jumping in because Shamea's getting a lot of attention, okay? And some people are jumping in just because they have been watching this friendship play out over the years. And, everybody has seen the fact that, Portia does not support Shamea the way that Shamea supports Portia. So a lot of people have a lot to say about that, you know, which, I mean, that's understandable. So Kelly's Mommy and Me event at the Ballman. And let me just say this. I absolutely loved Kelly's dress, the black and white dress with the pointy boob area. I thought that was super cute. And, the way she accented it in red, I love, love, love that. So all of the girls was there. Kenya was there with Brooklyn. Angela was there with her daughter. Portia was there with Pilar. Cynthia was there. Obviously, she don't have any small kids. Britt was there. Shamia was there with Shiloh. I guess her daughter, her oldest daughter, Shira. I forget. Her name just lost my mind. I guess she's still recuperating from her minor surgery. And I love that some of the mommies wore matching dresses with their babies. That was super cute. I know Portia did. I know Kenya did. And Kenya always, her and Portia always matches their little girl. So all of the ladies greeted each other and made small talk. And initially, everybody was getting along well, but I knew that would change at some point. So after making small talk, they began to shop because that's what they came to do. So then Angela started questioning Cynthia about if it was a good time to talk to Shamia, about what went down the day of her birthday. And Sharon said, Shamia is that girl right now. Yes. And it is, I mean, she is the topic of everybody's conversation. So, everybody's feeling some kind of way. I'm pretty sure, Portia's mom is a little jealous because she's lost a lot over these last couple of years because, you know, Portia's mom went from having Portia's old house to herself, whatever the case may be, and basically reaping the benefits of her daughter marrying a very rich man, you know, from what we know. to now her daughter's in distress. She has to be there for her daughter. You know, her daughter had these all of these intentions for coming back on the show, so that's not going to play out like she initially thought. So yeah, her mom is a little bit in her feels. Miss Diane didn't even look the way that she normally looks. I mean, Miss Diane looks stressed because y'all know Miss Diane look good for her age. Okay, her hair is always on fleek. Her clothes, her body is banging, but her feathers did look a little ruffled. She did look a little stressed in this scene with her and Portia getting a massage. And Sharon also said Portia and her daughter looked so cute. They did with that yellow flowery dress. I remember I had a dress very similar with big yellow flowers like that, and I thought it was super cute. It was they looked the cutest outside of Kelly with that black and white. I would say that Portia was second best dressed. So when Kelly got up to do her speech. Like, I really started to tear up when, Kelly got emotional when telling her story about her daughter's diagnosis of the brittle bone syndrome, especially when she said that CPS was called and they thought that she was abusing her own baby. Like, that is so, so sad. But I'm so happy that as soon as the doctor was able to put his eyes on her, he looked at her eyes and he seen the blueness and he knew right away that she had OI. And Kelly also shared that, the OI Foundation really supported her while she was going through everything that she was going through with her kids. So her speech was really beautiful. And then after that, everybody started shopping. So, the event was going well. So Drew finally showed up with her kids because she was very, very late. And then Angela tried to approach Shamea at the event and resolve their issue. And from the jump, it did not start off, on a good foot. But because Shamia was not receptive from the beginning, so it went downhill pretty quickly, okay? And the name calling began. Angela was calling Shamia Flavor Flav. And at first, I was really offended by the fact that she was calling Shamia Flavor Flav, but then they showed a clip where Shamia actually dressed up like Flavor Flav, I guess, for a Halloween costume. So it didn't seem so offensive after I seen that. And Shamia was calling Angela 99 Nose. Now, she wasn't lying about that nose, though. That nose looks just like Latoya Jackson because I think it was Britt Eady that said that she didn't want to laugh, but the girl nose do kind of look like Latoya Jackson nose, and she was not lying. So Shamia did end up apologizing to Drew, and Drew accepted her apology and said that it meant a lot that she did come and apologize for that little situation. So they were able to resolve their little issue that they had. And that also lets you know that, and Mama B said, why does why do those ladies try to resolve issues while they are at special events? You are so right, Mama Bees. It is not the time, but I guess that's the way they want the show to go. You know what I'm saying? It happens on every reality TV show, and I be saying the same thing. Like, there is no way because I used to put on events all the time, and I wish somebody would. Now, I'm not on no reality TV show, but I wish somebody would come and start some mess at my events. Like, I would be popping off. Like, I probably wouldn't even speak to them for a while. And Sharon said, even though it was childish, it was funny. Yes, it was funny when they was going back and forth. So, like I was saying, the fact that Shamea was able to apologize to Drew, but she didn't want no parts of Angela, that lets you know that whatever Angela said to Shamea, it really hurt her feelings because she didn't have anything for Angela. Like she was just like, "Nah, I'm good." And one of the things that Shamia did say, she was just like, I invited that girl into my home. And on top of that, and I added this part, it was her birthday. Like, you don't come and be popping off on nobody on their birthday. Come on now. On my birthday, I should be able to do and say whatever I want within reason. So, you know, and it's very personal when you invite somebody into your home. So, yes, Shamia just was not having it. So they ended up raising about $30,000 at the event. So shout out to that. You know, her friends showed up and showed out for her. So that's amazing. So Drew did approach Porsha to have a conversation about, the issue that they had about, her supposedly dating Dennis. But Porsha said, no, we're not doing that today. We're not doing that at all. And then on top of that, Drew had her sister with her. So she was just like, I'm not fixing to get into that conversation when she got her friend here. I don't know why I keep saying friend, while she has her sister here for both of them to attack me. So, another day, another time. So that's pretty much how that episode played out. Hey, Cece, thank you so much for being here, guys. So that is going to be the end of my recap. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you have not done so already, please like this video and subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so that you know each and every time I upload a video. And if you happen to be catching the replay, don't forget, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop down in the comments so that we can keep this conversation going. I love chatting it up with you guys down in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. And Cece says that she'll watch the replay. Thanks, Cece. And I hope you're doing well. And thanks again, guys, for watching. And bye for now.